what is web? We'll try to define what is web. See, web is nothing but it is a collection of resources on the internet. Okay, so in our day-to-day world, without this, we are not living. Actually, each and every day, there will not be no one in this world. Most of them will be using the web. Especially educated people will not be even one who will not use the web. So that is that to that extent, it has become part and parcel of our life. So now, what is this web is? Web is nothing but a collection of resources on the internet. You have some resources which have been put on the internet, and that only we'll call it as web, or we'll call it as World Wide Web. So what is this technologies? This the technology which you are going to use to implement or to make this web, to develop this web, or to put these resources on it, or accessing the resources, all those things, whatever you are doing on the web, what are the technologies that you are using? Some technologies like HTML, JavaScript, CSS, so many technologies are there. So these technologies or these things you are going to use on the web to make it more interactive and more useful to the users. So that is about this thing. So there are some terms related to it, as you have already gone through the Virtusa batch adoption. I hope you know all these things. We'll just have what do you say, brief what do you say, recalling of the concepts. So you know that is World Wide Web, or web is called, and there are some terms which we need to know before we step into the concept. So World Wide Web, that's what we have seen now. It is a collection of resources on the internet. So what is W3C is World Wide Web Consortium, or group of companies. Consortium means group of companies. So what is their role is? Their role is to develop standards for your webs. They develop standards for your web. So for your World Wide Web or internet, they develop some standards. So what are this means? These are group of companies, group of MNCs, group of MNCs. So group of MNCs like Facebook, so many things, so many big companies, they form a group, and they are going to develop this standards for your web. So that is that group of companies or group of people, we'll call it as W3C. Is that right? So, and World Wide Web was invented by Tim Berners-Lee. We call him as Sir Tim Berners-Lee. So because he is the main person who came up with this World Wide Web. Okay, so this the brief history of it. So you know about internet. Okay, you know about network. Okay, so network is a collection of computers. Internet network is globally. You are going to have here. You may have intranet and internet. Okay, so other than this, there are some things which you'll be using. So some protocols which you'll be using: HTTP, FTP. So these are some of the protocols which you'll be using. This, you know, hypertext transfer protocol and file transfer protocol. Okay, so now these are the some terms which will be time and again, which will be visiting these particular terms. So now this whatever application we develop on the web, we'll call it as a web application. Any application on the web is called as a web application. So web application contains, see, simple browser through which I access some resources from a remote server. So what is that? I have a web browser. This is my browser. This is my browser. I'm going to access some resources from the server. I'm going to access the resources. So this is called web server. And the browser through which I am going to access, we'll call it as web client. Okay. So normally you are sitting in a client machine, you are sitting at your home, you are trying to access a document. What is that you are doing? You are putting something into your browser, you get something from the any server, Gmail server or Google or whatever server you are accessing. So now this is how it happens. You have this is your web application. So now you have a communication link. So this is nothing but your internet. Okay. So it is not a wired, it may be wireless. So we have, for our understanding purpose, I have drawn the lines. So now the thing is, Your web client is nothing but a browser on the client machine, which is going to access a resource on the web server. See, the server may contain many resources. From these resources, the server will take one resource and will be giving you whichever you have requested. Okay, so now in order to have this communication, there are two protocols which are used. One is hypertext transfer protocol. Hypertext transfer protocol. Another one is FTP. FTP stands for file transfer protocol. File transfer protocol. Okay, hypertext transfer protocol and file transfer protocol. So this is the most common protocol used in the internet. Okay, so without this protocol, nothing happens in internet. So this is the protocol used for communication between web client and web server. So FTP is used for transferring the file. If you are transferring any file, then this protocol will be used. Okay, so but most commonly used protocol is hypertext transfer protocol. Okay, so now the communication between the web client and web server will take place in the form of request response form, request response pairs, request response. Okay, so and the request is called HTTP request. So first from here, a request goes to the web server. So that we'll call it as HTTP request. Okay, once receiving the request, the server will send a response. The server will send a response. So the response is called HTTP response. HTTP response. Is that right? So now for each and every communication, a web client will send a request to the web server. Web server will find out the request to web server will find out a response related to the request, and it is going to send the response. The request and response will be in the form of HTTP form. Okay, what are the fields that we have in HTTP request? What are the fields that we have in HTTP response? We'll see in few minutes. Okay, so one important point that you have to remember is, so this one communication is called as one cycle. Okay, one communication, one HTTP request, one HTTP response will make me one cycle. So this is called one cycle. So now one cycle will happen. Afterwards, after a few minutes, again the same client may request something, but this does not identify that it is the same server. Your HTTP protocol does not identify the web client again when it is making the same request or something else, because your HTTP is a stateless protocol. HTTP is a stateless protocol. It does not store the information of the client. It does not store the information of client. Some X client has requested something. After a few minutes, again X is requesting something, means it does not identify that it is the same X. Okay, so that is the property of HTTP protocol. HTTP protocol does not store the information about the web client because it is a stateless protocol. It does not store the state information of the web client. So that's why it is a stateless protocol. It is the property of this one. So this is called one cycle. And for each and every HTTP request, web server will send a HTTP response. So now we'll see what is that you will be having in a HTTP request and what is that you will be having in a HTTP response. So now you go to your HTTP request. HTTP request. Okay, before I go to this, actually you are seeing HTTPS. Okay, it is same hypertext protocol but with secure. Hypertext protocol secure. So what is secure is they send the data in encrypted form and they use certificates for web host. The server will be using some certificates so that the data will be sent in encrypted form. So this type of protocol, just same HTTP protocol, but you are going to include some security aspects. So the security aspects is the data will be sent in encrypted form. This is mostly useful when you are storing your most privacy information, your card numbers. You are doing an online transaction, you are storing card numbers. In such a case, almost all the things they prefer this. But now the companies are totally shifting to HTTPS only. all information, they want to go with this. They are slowly shifting. Is that right? So nothing but it provides more security than your HTTP protocol. So now we'll see what is that your HTTP request is going to contain and what is that your HTTP response is going to contain. What are the fields that you have? Okay, it's just a message. So it is going to have a header, one blank line, or we'll call it as empty line, and body. Is that it contains a header, blank line, and body. So this is, for example, my HTTP message. So it is going to have a header, and there will be a blank line, and body. Okay, these are the three fields of HTTP request. So now we'll see what each and every field will contain. So this contains a request line, and this contains request header. Okay, so body is optional. To separate body from header, we have one blank line. The purpose of blank line is to separate your header and body. We are having this blank line. So body, what is it is going to have is any additional information. If you are having any additional information, that can be stored in this body. Any additional information which you want to convey, that can be stored here. So now you come here, request line. So request line contains different fields again. Request line contains different fields. So first one is method. What is the method that you are using? URI, HTTP version. So these are the three things that your request line is going to contain. So it contains method, URI, uniform resource identifier, HTTP version, what version of HTTP you are using. So now if you go to method, so method can be of different types. Method can be get, post, put, delete. So still so many are there. Get means you are requesting a, or you are retrieving a resource. You are requesting a resource or retrieving a resource, then we use get. Post means you are submitting something. Submitting a request or you are submitting something, then you use post. Put means you want to update something on the server. Updating. You are updating some resource on the server. Then we'll put. Delete means you are removing something. You want to remove some data. So these are, other than this, there are some other fields. Most commonly used is these two only, get and post. So these are the things that your method can have. Method will convey what operation you are doing, what type of operation you are doing. So URI. So the next field is URI. URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. URI stands for Uniform Resource Identifier. Okay, which consists of URN and URL. Okay, URN stands for Uniform Resource Name. Okay, and what is URL is Uniform Resource Locator. Okay, URI contains both these things. So for your resource, see what is that you are doing in web application. Your client is asking some resource from the web server. So now how the server will contain large number of resources. How the server will identify each and every resource. It will use your URI. For each and every resource, it will have a uniform resource name and uniform resource locator. Locator is nothing but here you'll be having the path of the resource, where it is, total path. So both of this total thing, if you are combining, so name and uniform resource locator you are combining, you will get URI. So by using URI, your server will identify the resource whichever you want. Okay. The next field is HTTP version. So there are different versions, HTTP versions. So which version you are using, you can mention that version. HTTP version indicates version number. Okay. So the next one is request header. So request header will contain values in the form of name value pairs. What is that? It contains values in the form of pairs. Okay. The pairs is name value pairs. Each and every attribute will be in the form of name value pairs. So for normally what we do is, okay, just a little theory only. Afterwards, we'll be shifting to HTML. Once we shift to HTML, we'll be doing hands-on. Okay. So now HTTP response, as you know, response. So response is the one which is sent by the server. So as usual, it is here we'll be having we'll say status blank line. Sorry, we can say otherwise response blank and body. Okay, so the same thing. So the first part is response header or response. So blank line, one blank line, body. So here also it is optional or can be given. Okay. So now here it is response line, response header, response line, response header. Okay, and this is body. So normally in body, what you'll do is, what is the file they have asked, that file you will be sending here. Okay, so some file, some HTML file, whichever the server has, the client has asked, that file you will be sending here. Okay, so now here you come to response line. So again, it has different things. So one is HTTP version, status of the request. Then we'll be having what do you say, a description of the status. Description of status. Okay. So your response line indicates the response that you are giving to the client. So it involves your HTTP version. So already we have discussed what is version. That version number will be here. So status is nothing but what is the status of this thing. So there are some codes, status codes. For example, 200. 200 means okay. Okay means your request has been responded properly. So now if it is 404, okay, file not found or not found. Is that right? If it is 403, forbidden. And 500 means internal server error. Internal server error. Okay. Some of these things you would have encountered while using your web. So now this status indicates the status code. Okay, 200, 404, 403, 500. Okay, so now the description indicates this one. Okay, file not found, this description, whatever you are giving. Okay, so again, the response header is again in the form of name value pairs. Name value pairs. The same thing, content type, content size, or anything that you have, but it will be in the form of name value pairs. You'll be having the name of the attribute and its value. Okay, so as I told you, blank line to separate the response header, and the body you have a blank line. Okay, so in the body normally this may be optional, but normally most of the times you send some content in the body. Okay, so what is the content that is? That is the response for your request. Okay, I'll show you a practical demo of, I'll show you an example of this thing. How a HTTP request and response will be. Okay, so this is the HTTP request. Okay, you can see the first line. Okay, you can see the first line. Okay, so this one, so that is your request line. As I told you, it has the method that you are using. So either get, post, put, or what you are using, and this or the URI that you are using, URI, and the last one is HTTP version, 1.1 version they are using, and this is your request header where you will be using name is accept, name value is image.gif. So each and everything will be named this thing. So content length 35. Okay, so this is the body, request body. It indicates optional information. Okay, so this is about HTTP request. HTTP request. This is the format of HTTP request. Okay, so similarly you can see HTTP response. Similarly, you can see the HTTP response. Okay, this your HTTP response. Okay, so as I told you, first your HTTP version will start, then status indicates 200, then description of the status. Okay, so this is your header where you'll be having the what do you say, name value page. So date on which it was done, and what server, accept, content length, content type. So, and this is the response to your request. It is sending some HTML file. So most of the times here you'll be having the HTML file. So here you'll be having HTML file, which is the response for the HTTP request. Okay, I hope now it's clear. This is the example for it, for the HTTP request and HTTP response. So very important concept to understand this thing. To understand HTML, how it is working, how the web communication is taking place. Very important to know about HTTP request and HTTP response. So this